Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Tuesday, September 17th Committee of the Whole meeting to order. First item on our agenda is the approval of today's agenda. Administration, you have an item you'd like to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it please committee, we'd like to add 9.3, advice from officials.
Are there any other additions or deletions to today's agenda? Rachel?
I think we should delete 4 or 5.
Delete item 4.5. Delete it. Councillor Holland.
That would be in opposition to delete that. Is there a vote for this?
We'll vote on the agenda. Yes. Would you like to split that question?
For this, to split that question for sure.
Okay. Are there any other additions or deletions to today's agenda? Seeing none. Councillor
I'll move
Mintz has moved the adoption of the agenda as amended. We will split the question. I guess the first question I will call is on the deletion of item 4.5 from today's agenda. Was there any comments or?
I mean, I would say it's just not really properly before council. There's no admin report. We don't know who put it on. We don't know what we're asked to do. It's just an email in the agenda. That's why. And there's no reconsideration motion there.
Councillor Cromwell?
Thank you. I believe that due to the fact that we're committee, not council, we are here to discuss and talk and go round table, and that is the perfect place for that item to be.
Anyone else before I call the question? Okay, on the adoption of the motion to delete item 4.5 from today's agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My count is 4 and 5, and that motion fails. On the adoption of the motion to approve today's agenda as amended, which will include item 4.5, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes 9-0. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the August 20th Committee of the Whole meeting. I believe there was one amendment to the minutes that were pointed out to me. It is regarding resolution CW 24-131, which is on page 7 of your agenda, I believe. That motion should read, moved by Councillor Holland to direct administration to draft a new elected officials remuneration. Hang on, there's just a few extra words in there that I don't believe were part of that motion. Were there any other amendments required to the minutes from the August 20th meeting? Seeing none, Councillor Chamzik, you'd like to move the approval of the minutes as amended? Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0. Oh, sorry.
There were
one
2
opposed.
opposed.
2 opposed. Motion carried 7-2. Next item is item 4.1, which is the action item list. This is found on page, 9 of your agenda. Are there any questions related to the action item list? Are my page numbers off, Councillor Cromwell? You're giving me dirty looks here.
I was figuring out what that tapping was.
Refall.
On page 10 of the printed version, there's the second from the bottom, CC 2467. Just can admin provide us an update on when we might see that? The traffic bylaw.
That is traffic violation. Yes, Mr. Or Madam Chairman, actually, Director Whaley has completed a draft We're looking at it and it occurred to us that it's not as time sensitive as road bans really come into effect in the spring, so we have a bit of time. So I've kind of rearranged the priority, so we've got some other things that are time sensitive, so it'll come, but it probably is when the snow flies.
Thank you.
Any further questions related to the action item list? Counselor Holland?
Thank you. Page 11, CC 24-329. Just looking to see whether, if there's an update on that, please.
Are done complete?
What number were we at?
CC 24329, which is on page 11 of your agenda packet.
Complete. It's your request. Where we at? In my opinion, that motion was not valid. Because in passing the motion, council violated a number of provisions of the code of conduct. Nonetheless, in an effort to put an end to this, I would respond. My response is as follows. I accept the investigator's conclusions that I did not breach the code of conduct. And because of that, and because I have already apologized to the affected school board trustee, no further apology from me to anyone is required. So I decline to make whatever apology was discussed in the closed session at which I was not present. Unless the report and the reasons for the apology are made public, it's not clear what's been done wrong and what the sanction is for. And I cannot offer more than I already have.
Any further questions related to the action item list? Seeing none, can we get a motion to accept the action item list for information? Counselor Cromwell. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that count is 8-1. And that motion passed. Next item is the CAO update on page 15 of your agenda package. Does anybody have any questions for the CAO? Seeing none? Counselor Gerlich.
With any of the tax recovery offerings, are they going to be done this fall or the spring, or what is the timeline?
Madam Chair, yes, we hope to package up the tax recovery properties for sale this fall. We've just got a few steps to go through. In the case of 2 properties in Rochester, we actually need to take title. So those documents have been submitted to land titles, so we're just waiting for that. So the ideal timeline would be this fall.
Any further questions for the CAO regarding his update? Counselor Menz.
Just regarding the Island Lake water line, is there any more, has Island Lake gotten back to you at all? They had in their they had in their minutes of August 28th that they were going to reach out to Athabasca County and get a meeting going. No reach out has happened or anything?
Madam Chair, no, I've received nothing directly from Island Lake, Summer Village of Island Lake.
I looked in their agenda for tonight's meeting, but nothing in there, so just so everybody knows.
Thank you. Any further questions related to the CAO update? Seeing none, Counselor Chamzik, you wish to move to accept this for information? Thank you. We'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will vote in favor, however, I don't think it's proper, being we don't have authority in this particular room to do that. I don't even think we need motions for these, but that's something we need to address.
Motion's carried 9-0. Next item is the department updates. We will begin with the Infrastructure Services Department update on page 16 of your agenda package. Does anybody have any questions for Director Whaley? Counselor Mins?
As we'll get going here. Bueller Pit, how did the,
Can you please point to which page you're talking about?
that'd
when
be the
you're
very
asking
first one,
questions?
page 16, Bueller Pit. Any information shared with that, like possibly who got the contract or?
Madam Chair, I can't provide who got the contract because there has to be some negotiation with the second and third party, as the person who was the lowest bidder actually addressed their holdback to the wrong owner and addressed it to the landowner instead of the county, so they were disqualified. So there is some juggling going on with the second and third closest bidders at the moment.
Okay, okay, so, awesome. Just a comment, Splain Culvert. Thanks for getting that done. I think that's a huge, moving forward with getting that out of the way. Page 17. Maintenance at Ghost Lake for, I don't even know which line it is. I just noticed that it was a DLO access. What is that?
Through the chair, it's generally a lease agreement with the province. So,
To get access to the campground or?
yes,
Oh, okay,
so.
okay. Oh, I see. It wasn't with the landowner or something like that, but. Okay, I don't know if I should bring it up here right now or bring it up later, that the boat launch at Ghost Lake, are we going to like do anything with that?
Madam Chair, we are bringing back, hopefully at budget time, a request to do an assessment of all of our boat launches. There are issues with our licensing agreements with the province and with our Water Act applications on almost all of the boat launches, and we can't actually fix the boat launches without approval of the province. We can't enter the water. So it's going to be a work in progress, but it is hopefully going to be budgeted for. It's proposed anyway.
Okay, I've noticed that a lot of other boat launches as I've traveled the community, or not community, but traveled the province and camping and fishing and that. A lot of boat launches use full slabs instead of these little, I call them parking bunkers. And I think that would go a long way if we're gonna actually, my thoughts is if we're gonna actually enter in and do something like this. That's what I'd really like to see happen out at County Beach. And actual slabs of cement put in instead of and it a little bit more undertaking, but I feel that they last a lot longer and they work a lot more efficient than having these spaces in between these two chunks of cement that usually erode, and if the cement busts apart, then you got big holes you got to deal with, and you can't deal with it because we don't have the authority, and it's like bang, bang, bang. Eh? So that's my thoughts. Thank you very much for looking into that. Page 19, line painting. Is it line paint? I know it came up in the I think in the airport thing, but all of a sudden it tweaked me. Is all of our line painting done on all of our county paved roads?
Yes, through the chair, all of our line painting for this year has been completed.
Okay, perfect. Page 20. I have the county-owned house in Rochester. We own a house there?
Madam Chair, yes, that's one that was taken in tax recovery and will be put for sale.
Oh, okay. So
So
no one's
it's-
living there right now.
Correct. It's boarded up.
I thought maybe we could rent it out to like a doctor or something. I don't know.
We'll take your application.
Right on. Let's see, page 21, cell phones for all personnel. Is the cell phones gotten generated for the Greaterman and all that? Or is that still on hold or?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, the cell phones are on hold until we've finished the implementation of the Business Connect, which has just been completed, and a policy will have to go to the leadership team before it comes to council for appropriate cell phone use.
Yeah, okay. Because how is that working with the automatic or the timesheets getting in? Is that going to work through the cell phones? Or is that going to have to work through something else?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, I would defer the answer to corporate services
Oh,
on how the new payroll system will work.
should be.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, yes, there'll be an app that they can use on their phone or a desktop. We're also providing, I believe, a computer for staff use at the Public Works Building for anybody who
okay.
needs to. And obviously, we'll be working with other admin staff to help assist all of our employees get it on board, but at some point they'll be on their own. But we'll try to make it as easy as possible.
Okay, sounds good. And then phones at the Public Workshop, is our phones working over there? Or do we have an issue?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, the phones at the public workshop have been addressed now.
Page 22, full right-of-way cuts. Them boys are doing a great job out there. They've gotten great reviews on the right-of-way cutting and that they were just past my place and they're doing a great job. I just wanted to let you know on that. Yeah, and I think under infrastructure, I think I'm done.
Thank you. Counselor Holland.
Thank you. Just curious on page 17 through bridges, if we may also obtain an update on the Collinton Bridge, as I noticed it's still in place.
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, the tender for the removal and shoring is just completed and will be going out shortly. The engineering for the replacement of the bridge as per council resolution is complete and the new, the tender is prepared for replacement if council so decides.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. That's good to hear. We had a window between July, I think, and the beginning of September, and I don't know why, but I assumed the bridge was coming out this fall. Is that not?
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, based on the type of shoring we've decided to do with it, it can be done at different times in the year. So.
Thank you for that.
It's a great update. Counselor Cromwell.
Thank you. A while ago, we had spoken about county facilities getting inspected, and I know we were waiting on that. Is there an update when these inspections were going to begin or where we are in that process right now?
Through the chair to Councillor Cromwell, all of the building assessments have been completed that were on the attended package. We are awaiting their reports on each building. We've had 3 come in just for how they look, just so that we could approve the way that the report looks. And then we are waiting on the rest of them.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Gerlich.
Yeah, I believe there's a question that Councilor Mins didn't ask. In regards to 634, Road 634, the bridge on 634 been repaired. It can handle the heavy traffic now. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions regarding the infrastructure services update? Repal.
A question and a comment, I guess. Can you, on page 19, talking about wastewater? It's nice to see more investment in the hamlets. And I'm wondering if you can share with us the estimated project costs in Wandering River, and also in the second paragraph there, you talk about the space in the Rochester Lagoon. Can you give us just some interpretation from for those of us who are not wastewater experts? is this a problem or is it just something regular maintenance we need to address?
Through the chair to read, Paul, in regards to the cost for Wandering River, I would have to get back to council on that or committee on that. I apologize, I don't have it to hand. In the case of the Rochester Lagoon, dredging is part of regular maintenance. However, there is probably some remediation that will have to be done with that particular lagoon as it's reaching end of life. So.
Thank you.
And then there's some other repairs at the Highway 63 Rescue Center, and that and conversations I've had with others have made me wonder, from an administrative point of view, is there if we should be looking at seeking some grant funding to look at a corridor study on how we service the traffic and the needs of all the economic activity that occurs along Highway 63. It's maybe for the CIA.
Madam Chair, that's a great idea. I think we should probably have a bit of discussion about that during budget deliberations. There may be some opportunities that might be a bit more time sensitive if we were to pursue an ACP grant or something to that effect, but we'll look into that and have it ready for the first budget workshop.
Thank you. I did have a question also pertaining to the Highway 63 Rescue Center there. Is that building being included in our asset management or analysis of buildings? I know we don't own it, but if we're doing repairs on a frequent basis, is it being analyzed to see kind of the state of it?
Madam, excuse me, Madam Chair, I'd have to check on for certain on whether we included that one in the study or not. We have several buildings that we've recently discovered that there's possible ownership to or not possible ownership to, so we may have to do a small second round.
Any further questions for the director or pertaining to the infrastructure services update? Seeing none, let's move on to the corporate services department update on page 23 of your agenda package. Are there any questions for the director of corporate services? Counselor Mins.
I'll throw my one and only. Yeah. Page 24, buoyant alert. When I was on my whole conference in MD of Bonnyville, I was talking to one of the people there. And they said that their buoyant alert, they use it for if they have any stolen vehicles, if they have any break-ins or anything like that, just to get that information out there to the public. And I was just wondering, and I asked him how they did it, and he said that he figured that it went through the emergency services and CPO or something like that. I don't know if have you ever thought of something like that for the buoyant alert? Or
Madam Chair and members of the committee. Actually, through the survey that we just conducted, we're seeing that buoyant alert isn't used to the capacity that we're hoping. So certainly we'll definitely consider expanding what we can do with it to, one, entice people to use it, but secondly, to get the information out that's critical. So thank you for that recommendation.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Holland.
If I may, just in addition to that, there are other avenues to use other than buoyant alert for that particular thing. And one is Barhead has a really good system that they use. I call it BARC, but it's BARCC. And that's where they use that information. And it's actually a good place it's one of the places to check into is how they're doing it and how they are making that information public and out there. And it seems to be working very well for them. So it's just another area to offer as a suggestion.
Thank you. Any further questions? Refall.
I wanted to compliment the administration for the good reduction in the significant reduction in the accounts receivable in the 91 plus category overall compared to a year ago. that's important to manage and look after those resources. And then I had two other questions. One of them was regarding the taxation outstanding amounts. Yeah, I think there's some changes occur at the 2-year mark on outstanding tax accounts. And so I'm just wondering, would it be reasonable or sensible to provide sort of a clear plan of action on how all the tax recovery items that are 2022 and greater, for how many properties is that? What's the plan? Because that gets us into the 2 years plus category, and or maybe even starting at 2021. And I know a significant portion of the 2020 and greater is oil and gas, but can we have a review, and can council see how many properties that is and what's there, and be assured that there's a plan to stomp on those, or not stomp on, but to recover what's appropriately been charged.
Thank you. Through the chair and to the members of the committee. Yes, certainly we can bring a report back for that. I would like a motion so we can put it in the books. And you did mention that the majority of these are tax recovery related to the oil field. And then keep in mind that some of these are also through the tax installment payment plan as well.
Okay, I'll make a motion after this question then. Can you just, the new submissions under the FRIAA, so see you've got 5 non-vegetation projects, and then there's one called a vegetation submission. And can you just expand on that? Are you looking to do fire smarting around those lakes, or what? It says assisting with a vegetation submission.
Madam Chair and members of committee, yes, those are all fire smart related.
I would, relating to the tax balances, make a motion to request administration provide us a more detailed reporting on their outstanding accounts from greater than 2 years for the next or subsequent committee of the whole, whatever it's see October, November, by the November committee of the whole meeting. And I'm not looking to create 40 hours of work. It's more just a little bit more detail on what's there.
So you'd like to make a motion to direct administration to provide a more detailed reporting of the outstanding tax balances greater than 2 years?
Yes.
Questions or comments? Councillor
you.
Holland.
Being that we don't have authority here to make those motions, would it be to recommend to council?
For me, the answer is no. This is about making requests to come to provide information to the committee for greater discussion.
Understood, but we don't have authority to make motions such as that here.
That's how the committee seems to function, actually, is by making motions to bring information here, so. Is there any further comments or questions? Running it, Councillor Grelick.
On the tax arrears with oil companies and whatever, are they companies that no longer exist, or are they companies that have, do they have other assets within the jurisdiction, or kind of what is their status?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, from our quick analysis, some of them are no longer existing. They've dissolved. There are some that are still active. And we continue to send them statements. And so at this point, I'm not sure how the government of Alberta is dealing with these, and we're just awaiting further direction.
I just wondered, generally, if you assume someone's assets of a company, you also would assume their liabilities. Just feeling uncomfortable, that's all.
Madam Chair, in the latest issue of RMA's Contact magazine, if all of council's subscribed to it, I'm not too sure. I hope you are. If not, I'll forward it. There's an article in there about a recent ministerial order that was approved, which does allow transfer of assets again for companies, even though they may owe amounts to local authorities. So for a while, there was a regulation in place saying you couldn't transfer assets to another company until your tax bill was paid up. And the province has recently changed that a little bit and refined it, and I'll send that out to council after the meeting so you all can see it. And I would advise you all, when I send you the contact newsletter, if you haven't subscribed, you should, and you'll get the same info right from RMA.
Thank you. Counselor Cromwell.
Thank you. As we've talked many a time, we like to make sure that we follow our policies and procedures to the letter. And I would like to make an amendment to the motion on the board, which would read, recommend to county council to direct administration to bring back a more detailed report on outstanding taxes of more than 2 years to an upcoming committee of the whole meeting in 2024.
I think that's trying to reword the entire motion. But if you'd like to amend to recommend to county council to direct administration, just to add those words, that would be.
I don't think it's rewording the motion, but yes, I can change to recommend to county council to direct administration to.
Any further comments, questions? Or call the question, Counselor Holland.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that because in our procedural bylaw, 6.3, committee of the whole is authorized only to make recommendation by motion to council or another committee. So even our accepting reports is something that we should not be doing without directing to council. Therefore, I question as well, further to that, why we're doing motions to accept reports when we don't have the authority to do that here. So I definitely think we need to make sure that we're following the proper procedural bylaw when we're making these motions.
If that's the case, then we must remove item 6.2 from today's agenda because we didn't have the authority to direct administration to make amendments and bring it back there. But I think that defies why we're here today, so.
You have a bylaw.
Counselor Reeve Hall has made a motion to direct administration to provide a more detailed reporting of the outstanding tax balances greater than 2 years. Counselor Cromwell would like to amend that motion to recommend to county council to direct administration. On the adoption of the amendment, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
That's 5. And opposed? No. 6 and 3. Sorry, I didn't see Counselor
Oh, sorry. I said
Gerlach
aye.
raise his hand.
Oh.
On the adoption of the motion to recommend to county council to direct administration to provide a more detailed reporting of the outstanding tax balances greater than 2 years. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? 8 and 1. That motion is carried. Are there any further questions for the Director of Corporate Services regarding her update? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Community and Protective Services Department update, which begins on page 28 of your agenda package. Counselor Gerlich. Sorry, Counselor Cromwell.
Thank you. For those that didn't hear, he said I was the good-looking Gerlach. Not any question, just compliment to the director and her staff, actually. 23 citations over 30 kilometers an hour above the posted speed limit. 7 at 40 and 1 at 80. Crikey, great job to your crew. Please, thank you very much. I noticed also on page 32 that your team issued 39 warnings and 100 citations in the month of August. Looking at our year to date, that is a huge portion. And it is very nice to see that department out there for public safety and issuing those tickets and warnings to ensure the safety of the rest of our residents. So please pass on a great job to the crew. The one question I have that maybe I missed, and that could be completely my error. Our bylaw officer, has he been appointed as an actual CPO yet? If not, is that going to happen?
Yes, we received his appointment. It's a partial appointment in beginning of August.
Follow-up, what is a partial appointment?
Well, he's still working on some courses for all of the traffic side of things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? Director, oh, sorry, Counselor Chambliss.
I just have a quick question. When it says planning is still underway for Power Up North, for the Lac La Biche, what kind of planning do we do?
Our EC Dev coordinator is part of that planning committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Brief call.
There's a comment that the ICS 200 is being rescheduled for late September, October. Just can you clarify which year? Is that like coming up or is that next year?
Yeah, coming up shortly. So our hope is to get the ICS 200 out of the way here this fall, and then we can get the folks that need 300 done in the spring before fire season, hopefully.
Thank you. Any further questions for the director? I do have a question regarding the statistics on page 32 of our agenda. It says fire protection bylaw, we have 55 year to date, and there was only 16 year to date last year. Is that related to our new fire services bylaw being able to enforce certain things now, or what's the reason for such a large increase?
My sense is because of the strength of our new bylaw, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Holland.
Page 33 on the instant demographics report. For budgetary reasons more than anything, is it possible to expand this report to include the departments that are responding so that we know, how active each department is rather than the area that these incidents are taking place in?
We're going to give you an update in closed session today on those things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions for the director? Seeing none, can we get a motion to accept the department updates as information? Councilor Cromwell? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried 8-1. Item 4.4 are the counselor updates. We will begin with Councilor Cromwell.
Thank you very much. Still getting a few road complaints, but great job to the director and her crew for getting graveling done and getting a lot of our roads fixed up. So we definitely appreciate. I noticed a few projects that were on the list from last year that were taken care of and look phenomenal. So please pass on a great thanks again also to your crew for what they're doing out there. Otherwise, we're sitting pretty happy out there and not much to talk about this month.
Thank you. Councilor Gerlich.
Yeah, not a lot happening in beautiful Division 1. The bridge is up and running, and that was the biggest thorn in anybody's side, because there were a number of concerns and complaints, and it was up and running before school started, and people in the area are quite pleased with that. Really, there's not a whole lot happening. People are harvesting and everybody's busy.
Thank you. Councilor Kapitaniak.
Good morning. Um, okay, so in Division Two, the Collington Community Club resumed meeting after the summer. It was a very busy summer with lots of weddings on the weekends and other family events, and unfortunately, there was quite a lot of funerals during the week, but the hall was used consistently for the last couple months. We just did a casino up in Fort Mac for a fundraiser, and I went to that, so that was nice to spend some time a little bit more one-on-one with some of the community group members. I attended the Road to Hope Golf Tournament fundraiser on behalf of the county alongside Councillor Wallach and two of the county team members. I am really glad that this council continues to commit to supporting Road to Hope as councils before have historically, and recognize how valuable that service is for our community and the extended community. And if anyone has ever used Road to Hope or had the pleasure of volunteering for them in any way, you would definitely agree that that is something that I think stands out and makes our community amazing. So it was a really great day there. We had the multiplex board meeting just recently and approved the budget request that will be coming to council, I believe, prior to September 30th, as we had requested. So I also am proud of the multiplex board and for Rhonda for having the information ready and on time and making our budget deliberations, I don't want to say simpler, but definitely with more information, which is great. Ratepayer concerns in the last month, the Collington Bridge, which we heard all the reports and things are moving. So people are actually looking positive towards resolution. They believe us. They believe in us. They believe in infrastructure department, which is great. I did hear there's an action group that is forming. I'm not exactly sure what direction they're looking to go, but I think it's going to be a lobbying effort. If things aren't happening, I'm not not very informed, but on it. But I do know that we could be looking forward to just hearing more stories of people that are impacted and what direction they want to take that. There was a request for more weed spraying in the playground and around the skating rink next year. I know it was we got some done this year. The pansies really taken off in those areas, and so it was good to see that community members were taking turns cutting it as much as they can. But once it gets big, we don't. I know myself, I don't have a weed whacker that takes that down. But the grass cutting was very appreciated. There was lots of compliments, especially with the hall being utilized so much this summer, having that space cut for campers to stay. Kudos to everyone on the mowing team. There was another concern regarding a residence that has refuse issues in their yard. And I would like to compliment what is likely the diplomatic approach of whichever bylaw officer dealt with that, because I noted that it was cleaned up pretty much immediately after it was reported. So I reported it on behalf of ratepayers here and came back to Collington the next day and it was all cleaned up. So that's just a really good action. We have a community features meeting tomorrow, community features meeting on Zoom. And if it's okay with council, I just want to talk about a couple of things in closed, just on the premise that I'll have to name people on that committee with some concerns. So maybe I'll just slip it in later. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Paul?
In addition to the scheduled meetings, I've worked on the rail strike letter, and I think council should be congratulated on the important demonstration of support for our largest ratepayer and regional employer. I attended and stopped in at an event with second-year medical students who are currently completing some training in this area. Last night, just by sort of happenstance, I was introduced to one of the internationally educated nurses who was out receiving a tour of the town, and the tour guide saw me and stopped, and so that was great. I've fielded a couple of questions about our progress on the graveling program in the region. And another one about some concerns about a potential expansion of a peat mine near someone's residence. I also attended the mayor's breakfast. There were about 80 people who were there, basically a full house, and heard a number of favorable responses on that event. And I was invited and attended the AU golf tournament last Friday. So for the first time this year, and I think maybe even last year, I had the clubs out, and that was a great day. And it seems like there's some positive change happening at one of the larger employers in the region. And otherwise, it feels like we were just here. So that's what I have.
Thank you.
That's what I can remember.
Counselor Mins.
Yeah, same thing, Division 1 is Division 8, combines are rolling. Actually, they're catching up to the themselves with trying to find some dry stuff, but that's farming. I guess went to a great conference, CARES conference in Bonnyville last week, and seen lots of had some very good discussions with other people in the waste management end, and seen some very recreational site, very beautiful recreational site Bonnyville has at Canuso. And it's amazing. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's unreal. So I think the one big chairlift actually goes into Saskatchewan for the ski hall. But yeah, and got some great information from there. I'll be delivering a report on that. And what else is going on? I want to thank the CPOs and Director Wilkinson for taking care of a couple of trailer issues that all of a sudden popped up in Division 8 around the lake. And other than that, I think the water, I think it's pretty well quit running out of Baptiste Lake. Just a heads up. So it's empty. No, it actually, I think the beavers might have caught up to it finally again. So maybe. So yes, but other than that, everything's status quo, and going to Hinton tonight for another conference. You betcha.
Thank you. Counselor Holland.
Thank you. August was pretty quiet. Like I say, scheduled meetings took place. I took on more actual complaints than I have in a while though. I figured harvest would slow things down, but the seasons are changing, and so I was receiving concerns with regards to the main ones, top 5. Dogs, snow plowing, the cost, road allowance blockages. I'm assuming that has to do with hunting season now is upon us. Let's see, the rundown abandoned buildings was another one. And of course, as the leaves start to fall, they become more noticeable. And the Collison Bridge, that one I don't think will ever die until we get that dealt with. But those were the main concerns. The kudos that I'd like to leave with though are to Public Works. And everybody can see they're catching up, and it's being well noticed, and people are very happy about that, especially during harvest season. So thank you very much for that. But I'll leave it at that. Trails, of course, are huge, still working with those, and more people are gaining interest and looking for it and wondering where it is and how it works and all of those things. So I'm glad to see that people are getting out there and enjoying that beautiful weather that we've been having. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Chamzik.
Committees have been busy. Some have already approved budgets for this upcoming year. I attended the FCSS barbecue, immunity barbecue. It was great. Met with some residents with complaints about our mowing program, which kind of leads into some drainage issues within our hamlets. It's definitely going to be a priority for me to speak about for the level of service and budget talks. June 21st was the last time the hamlet of Grassland was done, which is nearly 3 months ago for mowing. Other than that, getting ready for meetings with other committees, his budget's underway. And a reminder to our people out there in the public to have a look at our events calendar, as there's some neat events coming up. And some of the compliments I've had is within our patch graveling program and graveling in general, so great job.
Thank you, Councillor Wallach.
Yeah, it's been busy farming, but we had the opportunity to host the 4 med students through the Regional Healthcare Committee at our farm last week, and some of the local doctors, and it was awesome. A lot of them, 2 of the med students from Calgary had never been into a rural community before or on a farm, nothing. So it was very exciting to watch their interest peak and understand where flour came from because they had no idea, or tour the garden and see where vegetables were grown. So it was a very awesome evening and great night. So that was about it for this month.
Thank you. I've been kept pretty busy with agenda reviews, preparing for the multiplex meeting that we had yesterday. We had a jam-packed agenda full of talking about grants and asset management. I believe the multiplex leadership team will be providing a delegation to council very soon about the asset management program that they've implemented at the multiplex and the costs going forward with it, and just give everybody a realistic view of kind of what maintaining a building that size and that age is going to look like for the future, so that we all are aware. I think that's really important. We also have strategic planning coming up. We set a couple extra dates to meet with the consultant in October. Just really working hard to make sure that that governance role is the focus there, and strategic planning, asset management, grant, utilizing every grant we possibly can to make it as feasible as possible to operate that building for our community and the services there. And we of course passed our operational and capital budgets, so you should see those very shortly. As far as residents' concerns, I would really like to thank the infrastructure department and county staff and contractors for completing the Splain Bridge culvert. That's a wonderful thing to check off the list. I've heard quite a few concerns about the Amisk Lake boat launch and the county-owned beach at Buck Lake. Hoping to hear more about it at budget. I know that they can't really fix the issues just magically. There's a lot of paperwork and hoops to jump through, and there's some money required to do that. So that's great. And it's also really hard to tell residents that I'm sorry the lake level is down, but I can't do anything about that. If I could, I would. Some of the school bus drivers have also caught me at school pickup to express concerns about the road maintenance in the Elscott area. They don't like washboard apparently, but hopefully with some of the moisture we've gotten recently, that it'll help the grader operator be able to cut some of it out. You know, when gets really dry, it's hard to do that. I also want to say, heard some beaver concerns and some water concerns lately, that there's not a lot that we can do about them. There's, you know, if the beavers are building dams right over top of a pipeline, you can't really dynamite that or different things. But I really appreciate the quick response of the administrative team anytime we've reached out. I think that's fantastic that they get back to you and get a response, and you can craft plan B if there is a requirement. So I'm just really thankful for that, and I'm looking forward to a busier schedule here in October, and the Athabasca Ag Society's harvest dinner on October 26th, which will hopefully be the wrap of harvest season. It's got to come to an end soon, really. Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion to accept our counselor updates as information? Councilor Wallach. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That vote carries 8-1. Next item on our agenda is item 4.5, residential driveway snow plowing program concern. I believe there was a letter on page 38 of your agenda. Administration, did you want to address this item?
No, Madam Chair, it's just included in the package per the request.
Keep Councilor Holland.
Thank you. I appreciate having this opportunity to have this conversation, as we are the voice of our residents. And when our residents speak up, we're to bring
As a
that to
point
the
of order, Madam Chair, the procedural bylaw says that no discussion of an item on a decision that has been of a question that's been decided shall be allowed until there's been a motion for reconsideration. So because we keep hearing about how we got to stick to the rules, I have to voice my objection.
Councilor Holland?
Thank you. So I'm really appreciative that people are coming forward and voicing their concerns and letting us know. I mean, more and more people that come forward, I value that, and I really appreciate hearing from them. I am in agreement that we have a concern that has been overlooked during this particular policy, and that is with regards to our subdivisions who had previous capabilities of purchasing a flag, therefore their driveways were obviously able to be completed with snow plowing. And now we've arbitrarily removed that from them. And so I'm going to ask from this particular letter and other concerns that I have received that we bring back this particular policy to review our subdivisions who have been negatively impacted, which wasn't necessary or intended. So that's where I sit. I would recommend to direct, or I guess I recommend to County Council that we have this conversation to revisit this particular policy to encompass our subdivisions, and where they had that service, they should maintain that service.
So you'd like to recommend to County Council to reconsider motion CC 2441 and revisit the policy? Is that?
I can't remember which motion was made with the original one, but yes,
That's
to read.
at the bottom of the policy, so.
Okay, yeah, 3201 is the policy number that I would like to have council reconsider, please.
So Counselor Holland has made a motion to recommend to County Council to reconsider motion CC 2441 and revisit policy 3201 residential driveway snow plowing program. Is there any comments on this item? Reeve Hall?
This was passed in January with unanimous consent after lots of discussion. And, you know, there's a trend at our council that keeps circling back. We've had one person come up with a problem. Last year, we kept hearing, we can't touch the program in the fall. It's too close to the fall. Let's run through the season. We'll do a new one effective July 1st. And now suddenly we've got one potential issue and we want to open the discussion up again. Why wouldn't we run the program for a season and see what other bumps and glitches come up? We're never going to get things 100% right on the first go. I've come to figure that if we can get to a place where we can get 95% of the problem solved, we're doing pretty well. And you know, we need to do the hard work when we're actually doing the work, not keep rehashing it. So I think we should table this until after the snow season and look at all the potential changes that need to be made for improvements in this policy.
Counselor Chanzik?
I disagree because you know what, I also have had a couple people now bring this to my attention. of some of the issues in our multi-lots. If, people that have had this service in the past and now even getting phone calls of declining services now from now in the future. I think it's a great thing to bring back. I think it's going to be a great discussion.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll give Counselor Holland the last one.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it is, and I agree. We're hearing more and more about it. And when we hear problems coming forward, we should address them, not leave them on the shelf to see if there's any other problems that may arise. These people had the right to have their driveways completed and snow plowed at one time, and they bought their flags, they had their places assessed, they've done their due diligence, and then to have it just ripped out from underneath them was definitely an oversight as far as I'm concerned on our part, and something that we definitely need to address. So I would appreciate that support. Thank you.
Counselor Gerlich, I just gave Counselor Holland the last word. Go ahead. I haven't called the question yet. Counselor Gerlich.
Okay, I agree with both parties. I think we put a policy in place. Let's deal with that policy. Then on the other hand, the few people that have had the service and are still requiring it, perhaps could be grandfathered for this particular year. And then if there is a need to revisit the policy come spring, then we should do that. But you can't nail it 100% every time. And you can't keep going back to it to try and nail it 100% because it still won't be 100% after you do that another time. So I think we should run with the policy, but we should grandfather those people who have had the service for this winter at least, and see how it goes from there.
Counselor Mintz.
I like that idea. I was hoping that we'd never have to open up this policy ever again. Because again, every council and for the last, I don't know how many years have beat the living death out of this. And every time you change it, you just open it up to another issue. Well, if you're going to do it for them, why aren't you doing it for me? And it just keeps compounding. And I was very much hoping that we could run this for a year and see. I'm on the same boat as Councillor Gerlach with, I agree with both ways, but I also agree with sticking to our guns and running a policy and just seeing what else is possibly wrong with it. Because we're never going to make everybody happy. We're not. Let's just call a spade a spade. So there's in the policy, there is a wording that says under the direction of infrastructure or the designate to see if they can do that driveway. And maybe it could fall on that. So we don't have to open up this policy again. I definitely and may get beat up here, but hamlets, I don't think should ever be looked at for snow removal in driveways. And as we see from lake subdivisions, it's so tight in there, they're kind of like a hamlet. There's not a lot of space in that, so yeah, I would like to fall back onto that wording of if they had it done last year and Public Works says or administration says that they can maybe do it, well, maybe we can fall back on that. But I just don't want to open up this policy again. I really don't. Not until January, February, March of next year to say what else do we have to change? Because are we going to open it up every time somebody complains? Because holy man, we better, that's what our meetings are going to be actually entailing, is this snow plowing policy.
Councilor Cromwell.
Thank you. I very much agree with the last two speakers. I'm the wording is in there allowing the discretion, and I think if we have done it and are able to do it, we're not here to take away services from the one or two. We're here to make sure that things are fair and equitable across the board, and that what a ratepayer gets in area 1 is what they get in area 9, is what they get in area 15, is what they get in area 32. I'm making up numbers right now. But the point is, they are real numbers. I do appreciate that, Mr. Reeve. Thank you. I think that it does need to be fair across the board. I don't think at any point it was ever meant to be discriminatory. However, if you do it 2020, 2021, 22, 23, and then say in 2024, well, we've changed the policy and your type is now excluded. I think that is maybe an oversight that did not mean to happen. And if there's a way around that, the administration can do without reopening a policy that I think for ones we were actually happy with as a group, we should continue to be happy with it and allow that leeway as required.
Director, would you be able to comment on approximately how many individuals have tried to apply for the snow plowing program and reside in a multi-lot or lake subdivision?
Madam Chair, 5 to my knowledge.
5 total? We're looking at reopening a policy for 5 people. That's there. Oh, boy. Okay, Chamzik first.
From my understanding, some of those people have been called because they've been declined with their application. Are they going to be reconsidered this upcoming year?
Through the chair to Councillor Chamzik, do you mean the people who have been called and said that they've been told that they don't fit inside policy?
Apparently, this person in particular has had her driveway done in the past. She applied under this policy, and then she received a phone call back from somebody in administration declining her application because she's a multi-lot subdivision.
Yes, if council wishes to offer discretion to the wording in the policy, we can do that. I do not know if we have a record of all people that have been declined. I mean, just through the chair, some of them have reached out to you guys, not directly to administration, and I'm not the only point of contact that answers the phone, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Mintz.
Yeah, that was a question that I had. How do we possibly make this happen? Do we need to? Are we gonna just allow administration to? I would say allow administration to have, excuse me, to have discretion on multi-lot subdivisions. Let's stay away from hamlets and lake shore subdivisions. Because we're getting into some pretty tight quarters there, and I don't want to start putting up hamlets and lake shore subdivisions, but so how do we do this? Do we not direct, but I guess maybe through council? Do we need a motion? Do we need a?
The motion that Councillor Holland has put on the table is to recommend to County Council to reconsider motion 2441 and revisit policy 3201 residential driveway snow plowing program.
Amendment.
Well, if we want to amend to.
So
If-
then at council, once we vote to reconsider, then we can decide kind of what amendments we'd like to make. But
But that's
Until
opening up,
council
that's opening up the.
it opens up the whole policy,
Ooh.
right? Refall?
I think, I mean, it's important to remember there's no right to plowing. It's a service that we offer, and we've typically not offered it in hamlets. And, you know, we do provide different levels of service in different areas. Some places we provide pavement. Some places we provide really close access to truck fill, whether it's ag water or other water. You know, the idea that this was ripped out from under people overnight is hard to accept, because we started this process well before January specifically to provide time and notice so that people could be prepared for the change. We came to a conclusion, and again, I will say, we have a habit of continuously trying to rework the stuff we've already done. It's time to start making some new decisions. And really, if we want to be absolutely fair, to be fair to everyone in the county and make it equal for everyone in the county, we should just plain and simple not plow driveways at all. That's the only way to be fair, because there will always be a case where someone doesn't get it. So if we want that fairness, cancel the whole program and then we're done. I don't support that. I think it's how it works, that we have to get it right for the majority that we can. Let's give it a chance, see how it works, see what other things come up, and then we can take some thoughtful time and adjust it if we need to. Because let's say 5 people have come up, multiply by 10, so there's 50. There's still 6,950 people that don't have a problem with it.
Counselor Cromwell.
Through the chair to the CAO, based on the wording of that policy as is, do we need a motion to allow the director to make that judgment call?
Madam Chair, it seems to me pretty clear the areas that we would not accept an application for. So if council want to revisit it, I would suggest some wording be refined.
Thank you. Counselor Chanzik. Okay. Counselor Holland, I will give you the final word one last time before I call this question.
Thank you very much. I definitely think that this was an oversight, as I mentioned. I don't believe there's 6,950 people who are happy with this at all, as they wouldn't all have their driveways plowed. They certainly didn't all buy flags. So that we're looking at a program here that people had, and then we took the service from them without realizing how it would impact. Therefore, it's a simple change to the policy, very simple. It would take us a consent agenda to handle it. We wouldn't even have to discuss it. So I urge everyone to give administration that opportunity to make that one small change, bring that back to council as recommended, and we move on. Make people happy. That's what we're here for, to provide a service, not ignore people who used to have them.
Counselor Waller.
Just for clarification, we still have to do a reconsideration motion before we amend anything. So we do have to discuss this at council.
Counselor Holland has moved to recommend to County Council to reconsider motion CC 2441 and revisit policy 3201 residential driveway snow plowing program. On that, we call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
That motion is carried 7-2. Did we now, in order to take a recess for approximately 15 minutes, and we will come back to,
Motion to go into closed.
Counselor Wallach is making a motion to go into closed at 10:45. Call the question. All in favor? Motion carried.
Yes. Aye.
So Counselor Gerlich has made a motion to accept the presentation as information. Call the question. All in favor? Jordan, I can't see Counselor Kapitaniak.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? 7-2. That motion carries. We will now break for lunch for 30 minutes and come back at 5 minutes after 1. Thank you. Okay, I will call the meeting back to order at 1:05. Next item on our agenda is item 6.1, minimum tax impacts, which is on page 43 of your agenda package. Recall.
I would like to compliment administration on the report and be prepared to move the recommended motion.
Move the recommended motion. Any comments on this item? Counselor Cromwell.
Thank you. And I know we've been around minimum tax many a time, and we're gonna go around it again. I think that the minimum tax is not the right way of doing it. We are impacting a small percentage of our tax roll and getting very little revenue out of it. I think we would be far better off to abolish the minimum tax and implement a administration fee for per tax notice that comes out at $25 and make it uniform across the board.
Further comments? Counselor Holland?
Thank you. The instituting an administration fee across the board, of course, would definitely make it fair for everyone. It would also triple the revenue, if not a little more, for that purpose of bringing in revenue. I agree that the minimum tax, we have discussed it. I still maintain that it is not fair and equitable. We've got properties that are not serviceable. They're not accessible. We didn't take that into account, nor did we know that at this time, that we passed this, that it went through, that we didn't realize the impact. One resident to have his taxes increased by over $1,000 in 1 year is insane to me. Someone who's been doing cattle for many, many, many years and not had to have that burden, especially in retirement age, is just, for me, it just doesn't make sense. We also approve variances to our structures of under 640 square feet, which impacts our tax assessments as well, which is, cause it, somebody who's got a 640 square foot less size home is has to use the same services as somebody with a 4,000 square foot home. So I really struggle with the minimum tax. We have assessments. That's our way of dealing with what land is worth. And to turn around and tell someone that their 2-acre parcel that's not accessible by land and not accessible for any services for that matter is going to be taxed at the same minimum as somebody with 160-acre unaccessible property makes zero sense. It's extremely unfair to me. So if we are unable to come to an administrative type fee, I would be definitely in support of lowering the minimum tax if that is the desire of the council. But I would prefer to see it disappear all entirely, and we look at our mill rates as what we should be doing as far as the council is concerned.
Counselor Garlick.
As a county, the county supplies a vast array of services to its citizens. And that has to be paid for in some manner. There has to be revenue raised from somewhere. And that is raised in the form of taxes, which then you have to develop a system as to how do you implement taxes so that they're implemented fairly right across the board. So you have assessment. Everything is assessed on a formula that is consistent throughout the province. And so you have this assessment, and that's when I see the mention of to create fairness, that's what assessment is all about. It's there to create fairness. So why would you then all of a sudden pick out a certain portion, which happens to be 0.3%, 0.3% out of our tax base, not even a percent. It's hardly worth even looking at, as minuscule. At the same time, we had the blinders on because we're going to implement this minimum tax because it's going to build bridges and it's going to do all these things for us. And it happens that that's 0.3% of our income. 75% or more comes from linear and machinery and equipment and those taxes. And we didn't even bother with it. So when a pipeline comes out of Lac La Biche into the county of Athabasca, they get a 25% discount because our mill rate is 25% below what Lac La Biche is. And then you go into Thorhild and it goes up 80%. And we're 4 to 5 mills behind Lac La Biche, even though they have double the assessment we do. And one mill's worth $1 million. So we just closed our eyes to assessing those that are really not paying their fair share in comparison. If we were going to the maximum the government allows, a 5-to-1 ratio on your lowest mill rate to the industrial rate, we could be sitting at 21 mills and still be within provincial guidelines. And we're at 13, 14. And we've inflicted this on taxpayers for no good reason. There's absolutely nothing fair about it. If you have a quarter section that's got 5 or 7 acres split off it, and most of it is because of topography. You get in my neck of the woods, and hardly any of the roads follow a road allowance. They're following the topography. And there's a piece of wasteland on this side. And during the 60s and 70s, everybody farmed or used every inch of land. If there was cultivated land, they were using it for livestock and raising grain and whatever. And they fenced all these little pieces of bush and whatever to run their cattle in. And you can't supply a water source and fence these things. So all these little pieces got utilized. And that's all changed now. Those pieces are there and they're probably hardly even used anymore. But now we're going to charge the same amount of tax on the 7 acres as the balance of the quarter pays. They both probably pay $100 on some of that marginal land. Doesn't make sense, and it's not fair. There's nothing fair about it. If we'd have just implemented an administration charge, that would answer. And again, the $30, I don't believe it costs any $30. I mean, you take the number that we have in the tax roll and just divide it by 30. If we amalgamated 1,000 of those properties back together, it's not going to drop by $30. It just doesn't cost that. It does if you take the whole thing and divide it by the number on the tax roll. But if you took 2,000 or 3,000 off of that and divided it, it would just be more expensive per unit. It'd probably be $30, $40. I'm so frustrated that I promised myself I wouldn't get too excited about this and be able to explain it better. But I think it was a bad idea then. And I think it is a costly thing that we missed $1 million in 2021 that we should have picked up. We missed that again. It's magnified in 22 and it's magnified in 23 and 24. That $1 million that we should have taken that first year while we were fooling around with this this trivial thing that affected a lot of our ratepayers. It's really shameful almost. We came in as a new council with no experience at all, with an administration that had no experience at all, and we tackled something like that. And it does not show well.
Councillor Mins, do you have your hands up?
Well, I'm not going to comment too much. It looks like we're not the only one that actually implemented a minimum tax, because we have information here that shows just a few of the municipalities that have minimum tax, and a few of them are already raising it up from what they actually started with. So I don't believe that we did anything wrong. I think my point of view is a administration fee is about the worst thing we could do, just due to the fact that I've watched my taxes just on my own land on my own house go up by $200-300 in the last few years. And it's like, why all of a sudden are we gonna start making people who are paying $4,000 in just a subdivision lot pay another $25 just to get their tax notice? No. That, to me, that's ludicrous. But to say that we're doing people wrong by having a minimum tax, I don't agree with, and I'll vote the same way that I voted before. It's as you can see, we're not the only municipality doing this. So I don't think $100 for owning any land or leasing any land is ridiculous. I don't think so.
Counselor Wallach.
Yeah, I'd be opposed to an administration fee. Just the town has done it and the people there are pissed. They don't like it. So, and the administration has no, from what I've heard, when people call the office, they have no excuse why they're charging their $25, their administration fee. So I would not want that administration fee.
When I look at this list, we, when we had the discussion around the minimum tax, we said we were gonna set it and it was hopefully gonna stay there. We were gonna leave it at the same rate. We weren't gonna increase it. We were committing to not increasing it. And then I look at these other municipalities that have had to increase theirs, and I just think, I'm glad we haven't. I'm glad that we set it at a value we thought was fair, and we're not having to increase it here. And so I'm in favor of leaving it as is. Go around one more time, Counselor Gerlich.
Somehow I don't understand why people are apologetic for taxes. Our taxes right across the board are extremely low. For housing, for farmland, they're extremely low. Compare it to how much you pay for a power pole in your yard, what you pay in taxes and what you get from the municipality. And the mere fact is that we're very fortunate that we have industry in here that picks up the bulk of the cost. What we pay in property taxes for houses and whatever is very, very minimal. And I don't know why people should apologize for tax increases. Everybody has a job and they say, well, inflation is such and such. I need 3% or whatever to cover the cost of inflation. Well, municipality, they don't have any 100% of what they spend are fixed costs. They're not discretionary spending. It's fixed costs. And I don't know why all of a sudden we feel like we should be somehow guilty about raising taxes or charging taxes or whatever. That's where the county gets their income from. And we've left so much untouched. Like, you explain to me why you would want to milk these few pennies out of our taxpayers, and we don't address our shortfalls on 75% of our income with the industrial sector. I mean, Lac La Biche has twice the assessment we do. They're 5 mills ahead of us on that. They got half the roads we do. They've got 40 major structures. We got 240 as far as bridges and bridge pipes are concerned. And we're sitting here and we're raising $108,000 by doubling taxes on these properties. It makes absolutely no sense. And I don't see where it costs the county. It doesn't cost them a penny more for anything other than sending out the tax notice. And I did inquire and I asked what would happen. I've got a couple of quarters that are split into 280s. I said, how much would you save if I amalgamate back together? And they said the price of a piece of paper. So it was a bad idea
Counselor
then.
Gerlich, I'll get you to sit up closer to your microphone. Thank you.
It was a bad idea then, and it's a bad idea now. And I think that we should recognize it. And I think that we should be sitting down and having some discussions around taxation, because taxation is our income. And we're just kind of sitting back and really not, like, when we went through this, I asked our CAO, I said, are we comparable with our with our neighboring jurisdictions as far as M&E and linear. Yep, we're very comparable. And I was brand new then and didn't know exactly how to run my computer. If I wouldn't have been so ignorant, I probably could have looked some of that stuff up for myself, because when I finally did figure it out, I saw that it was sorely lacking. And you need to remember that we also passed 2 readings of the bylaw, which called for a $250 minimum tax, which would have involved 6,000 properties, which would be half of the tax base. We're going to say an assessment doesn't matter anymore. This is a good idea. It was a bad idea, and I think everybody was relieved to get it from 250 to 100. Not that it was a good idea or an acceptable thing. It was just a heck of a lot better than 250.
Counselor Holland and then Counselor Cromwell? No? Okay.
Thank
Counselor
you.
Holland.
I said it earlier today, and I'll say it again. We are here to be the voice of the people. We work for the people. I have not had one person come to me and say, could you please put in a minimum tax? I think that would be great. I hear more people telling me, are you crazy? Are you serious? Is that really something that you guys want to go down as your legacy? Really? Minimum tax, 2,165 people impacted, 10,913 rolls. I'm sitting back going, is that fair? Why are we, once again, going after people that are using land that's really not, they weren't assessed to have land that was above the minimum tax because the land is useless to them other than pasture. And we're telling them, no, we're going to sidestep the assessment. We're going to sidestep that altogether because that process doesn't cut it for us. For 2,165 people, we failed them. And I think that is a travesty. And I think that's absolutely horrific that we are negatively impacting that many people over $108,640.81. Blows my brain. 0.3% of our budget. Unbelievable. We can do better than that. And I urge this council to think about that. We can do better. We work for the people. We don't work for this council.
Are there any further comments? Seeing none, I'll give Reeve Hall the final word before I call the question.
It seems the theme of the meeting is actually revisiting motions that were approved by a majority of council, but not liked by a few others and that keep coming back. Minimum tax actually is part of the equitable distribution of the tax burden across properties. Is it fair for a parcel worth $300,000 in one tax classification at market value to be taxed at $67 and another one in a different classification to be taxed at $2,300? We keep hearing this fairness. That doesn't work. Yet that is the reality of how the system works. And the minimum tax partly writes that. We can't get programs to be 100%. I think you've heard me say this before, 100% perfect for everybody all the time. There are absolutely going to be some things where there is an adverse impact, but I think our job is to make courageous decisions that are for the long term and that strive to get it right for the balance and the majority. And we have to accept that once in a while there will be an adverse impact. Assessment is not to create fairness, but to work out the equitable distribution of the tax revenue across our ratepayers and property within our boundaries. If you own a property, surely it's worth $100. If it's worth owning, is it not worth $100 to own it? This council has been steadily increasing the gap between our lowest and our highest rates. We've heard that we've done nothing, but that isn't the case. We set out a multi-year plan and we had the courage to say we are going to revisit the structure of our tax rates within our municipality. And we have been moving that gap so that our industrial, non-residential rates are getting higher and closer to the competitors on in our neighboring jurisdictions. On one hand, I've heard this is insignificant, and yet we seem to spend an outrageous amount of time on this issue. I had a conversation with one of our largest landowners in the county, and they told me they felt this was reasonable. Like, this is probably, as individuals go, one of the people that have the highest personal tax bills. The argument about fairness to me doesn't hold water because we were comparing apples and peanuts. Much of the land that we're talking about is on the regulated assessment, and if it were taxed based on market value, few, if any of those would be worth $100. We're getting conflicting comments about how our taxes are too low, but then $100 per parcel is too high. We're talking about $100 a parcel on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of land. Taxation is spread across the land, generally by market value. There are some exceptions around regulated rate. This addresses that a little bit. And I'm going to say again, colleagues, it's time we started looking at new decisions and future focused things and move forward instead of looking through the rearview mirror. Can we let this rest?
Reeve Hall's made a motion to receive the minimum tax impact administrative report for information. That will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The count is 6 and 3.
Chair, I would also like to make note that motion is not valid, and committee of the whole being, you have to send that to council for recommendation.
Noted. Moving on to item 6.2, policy 2009, elected officials remuneration and expenses. At our last committee of the whole meeting, we discussed the elected officials remuneration and expenses policy. Administration has provided a clean copy of the amendments starting on page 61 of your agenda package. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I noticed in the recommendation that it could be split, being that take effect date on November 30th. So I would like to go forward. Actually, I'll put a motion in and then we can speak on that. But I would like to recommend to County Council to forward policy 2009, elected officials remuneration and expenses to the upcoming regular County Council meeting for approval with amendments as discussed today. And the second motion be, and further that the second motion would be that this recommend to County Council that policy 2009 take effect October 1st.
Yep. Comments, questions? Did you have proposed amendments, Councillor Holland?
I do, thank you.
Can we start on page 61?
Actually, if we can move to page 65,
Okay.
that's where I was looking at making a few amendments. So the first amendment would be D and letter I, the last sentence, notwithstanding the foregoing, the Reeve and Deputy Reeve shall receive a travel per diem at a rate identified in section A. As we are doing away with per diems, I would like to see that statement removed. On page 67, let me see, G, I. This might be a little bit confusing, but I'll try my best. In the event that a member of council attends an event that is hosted by a provincial or federal political party, such as a provincial fundraising function, I would like to delete the words, the elected officials shall not be paid a per diem by the county for their attendance, as we do not have per diems. I would like to leave the comma in after that bracket of function bracket comma and go on with expenses that are deemed to not be political. Remove the comma. Contribution shall be reimbursed as a meal expense only up to a maximum of $25, etc. So I'll read how I would like that to read in my opinion.
Does that make sense to everybody? How she went through that? It made sense to me. And
No need to read it.
Recall? Sorry.
That's fine as two sentences. No, just put a period in and delete the comma.
So I'll just read it how I thought about it. In the event that a member of council attends an event that is hosted by a provincial or federal political party, such as a provincial fundraising function, expenses that are deemed to not be political contributions shall be reimbursed as a meal expense only, and then carry on with the rest of the sentence. So yeah, that comma
Anybody
between
have any
political.
opposition to that amendment? Yeah, this time?
Thank you. So very important, the comma between political and contributions be removed. And the last one that I have, and this also is based on a couple of reasons that I would like to see on remuneration review, III. Any resulting recommendations, if approved by council, would be effective as of the beginning of the subsequent council term. I would like to see that removed. I know it's caused us some issues here, but I also note that when there is a midterm review, the sitting council should have that opportunity to be able to implement those recommendations as they see fit. And I also found that there was a bit of a contradiction in Schedule A, leaving that statement in as honorariums on page 68, which I'd like to see stay. Honorariums for the Reeve and councillors may be adjusted annually through the budget process to reflect current economic conditions. So recommendations and economic conditions, et cetera, should be able to be implemented during that review that has been requested midterm.
Discussion on that amendment? I would say I'm opposed to removing the clause about the remuneration review. I think a lot of what we've gone round and round about at this table would have been much different conversation if we were simply discussing setting things up for the next council instead of changing our own pay. So for that reason, I would be in opposition to that amendment. Any further discussion or any further amendments?
Can we,
propose?
so there's amendments proposed, but I think it's important to talk about them individually and get a poll of council. We can't have one councillor say, I want this out, and then let's talk about them individually and vote on them as we go, because I just think it's just better to get to a final document that we're all really clear we agree on.
Are there any other proposed amendments before we go through and review the proposed amendments? Councilor Holland.
Well, if we would like to open up the first one, then on page 65, the notwithstanding the foregoing statement. The reason why I've asked for that to be deleted is we have a county vehicle that is available for both the deputy reeve and the reeve to use, as well as councillors. And one of that is a benefit. Most people pay a taxable benefit on that as an employee. And we don't even see those that usage being put down, being included in our council expenses on the website. So I really struggle that we're not being open and transparent on the use of that vehicle, as well as we are removing per diems, or that is our hope to remove per diems. Therefore, I do not believe that a travel per diem is required.
I would support the removal of the travel per diem, so long as the policy is amended so that the reeve and deputy reeve can claim mileage for agenda reviews, check signings, document signings, and expense claim authorization, items like that. Because I know on multiple occasions, those are extra trips made to the office, and that's kind of what we had originally discussed, having those just token amounts for, was to cover all of those kind of expenses rather than having them be claimable. So it kind of has to, I would support one way or the other, but Councillor Wallach. Councillor Cromwell.
No, as you can see, that is very well, and I think that's very appropriate how you worded that.
Has to be one
Yep.
way or the other, right?
I was just gonna, what do you want added in there again?
The policy would have to be reworded so that the reeve, I would like to see it, so the reeve and deputy reeve should be permitted to claim mileage for agenda reviews, check signings, document signings, and expense claim authorizations. And other,
Or another, like, there's those other things that a person attends regardless of who's in the chair, that per diem kind of cover just a lot of the extra travel, and but to me, it's just simpler to have a flat rate that is taxable. But is there, so I think having to track every last mileage related trip is onerous, but you know, for the folks who are farther away from the office, it may be it'll certainly be more expensive, but it's probably a better option to just pay mileage for every one of those special trips that gets made on behalf of the county.
Sorry, Councillor Cromwell.
Thank you. Seeing as I don't think there's any objection to the wording that you used, could we ask through the chair to the recording secretary just to word kind of how she has that laid out to make sure we're.
Don't think she would have that laid out. Being as it wasn't included in the original motion is just as amended, so. Other amendments I would like to propose. Under 5.1E. Says submit their expense claims to the Council of Corporate Signing Authorities for authorization. I'd like that to say within 60 days of month end. Within 60 days of the month end, so. I mean, if you do your expense claim and you forget a couple things, you can add them in the next month, but I mean, there's only a certain time frame that you can add things in. Six point two C, I question the use of the word employee services for payroll. 6.2C on page 63. Elected officials are to provide sufficient information to employee services, payroll, and sign up for eligible benefits. We just use county administration in so many other places that it seemed inconsistent. So just change it to county administration. Or to administration, whether it's county administration or benefits administration.
Are we not able to just do payroll? Because, pardon?
Payroll.
Who's payroll? We give it to the administrative team. You can call them payroll, you can call them HR, you can call them late for dinner. We're giving it to administration.
Well, I guess way I look at it, when you're filling out T1s, I think, what are they now? Whatever they are, those our little information that were supposed to be for taxes, right? Whether we're single or married, T1s, yeah. TD1, that is, it's been that many years. When we're providing that information and signing up for eligible benefits, it shouldn't just go to any member of the administration team. It is a privacy thing. And for me, that should go to the payroll representative on staff, not everywhere else. When I send in information, it comes from my personal email, not my county email. So yeah, leaving it open just allows sensitive and private information to go places where it doesn't need to.
And I believe leaving it open opens the door to counselors discussing things with administration outside of going through the CAO, so.
How does it work for payroll? In this situation, is that not a good idea? Do we provide it to you or do we provide it to payroll?
Madam Chair, if you just refer to administration, it would be clear where it has to come.
Page 64, D, Roman numeral 5, V. Oh, 65, sorry. They've given me 2 copies of the agenda page and their page numbers are different. D5, yes. Where transportation is provided, for example, as part of a convention registration, it is expected that elected officials will make use of the complimentary transportation services. I would put comma when practical. If Councillor Minns is having a discussion with Brian Jean or Councillor Cromwell, I don't expect you to run out of that conversation to catch the community bus that's taking things for the conference, right? Like in that instance, a taxi or an Uber would be an acceptable mode of transportation just because of the timing. So I think that when practical
Well, and that
is really important for that.
that opens us up for meetings at the Ledge or anywhere as well, where there's not venue transportation to that outside venue. So you have to have,
You have to have that kind of clause. Are there any other amendments? Suggestions? Give everybody a chance to look through. Counselor Holland.
With the change to the per diem Schedule A of the travel per diem to change it to mileage for Reeve and Deputy Reeve, Schedule A then would need an update as well under travel. And I'm sorry, where were we at with the last amendment there on page 67, I, number 3, or I, the resulting recommendations effective at the beginning of the substitute council term. I didn't hear if that was something that is page 67.
Do we want to take an informal poll on that one as to whether or not to include it? Or would somebody like to? Oh, what's the best way to do it so that it's recorded? Somebody like to make an amendment to
Just,
include it or not?
would anyone object to just an informal poll first, and then if it's
Anybody okay with that? And then if it's divided, then we can do a formal poll so that it's on the record. Okay. Who is in favor of removing? What number is this? 6.3 Roman numeral 3, that council shall request a third-party review of elected official remuneration be undertaken to bring forward recommendations regarding council remuneration, and resulting recommendations, if approved by council, would be effective as of the beginning of the subsequent council term. In favor.
One sentence, any resulting recommendations.
Just the final sentence? Okay.
Fine.
Okay, just to clarify. In favor of removing that sentence? Opposed? Okay. So we are split on that. So, formal amendment to your motion? Are you okay to? 5-4, yeah.
I missed what you said. I'm sorry. You're very low.
I'm sorry.
You are very quiet.
Let's try this. Is that better?
Thank
Okay. I'm trying. Sure. Okay, Counselor Holland, would you like to make an amendment to your motion so that there's a formal vote on that for the record? Okay. Before we get to the point of voting, are there any further recommended amendments to this policy? Seeing none? Okay. Counselor Holland has made a motion to forward policy 2009 elected officials remuneration and expenses to the upcoming regular county council meeting for approval as amended. And further, that the new policy to recommend that the new policy take effect on October 1st, 2024. And further to that, she's made an amendment to her motion to amend the policy to remove the last sentence of section 6.3I, Roman numeral 3. Counselor Kapitanic.
I'd like to split the question and have the effective date be the split. I'd
Perfect.
like to then see how it goes and hopefully work with the recommended motion.
So we're gonna call 3 questions, but they're kind of all gonna wrap into one motion. 3. Counselor Cromwell?
Thank you. Maybe I'm not in my proper brain today, but why do we have to split the 6.3 II, but not the rest?
We seem
When
fairly
we
uniform
have
in the
a,
rest. I didn't hear any opposition to the other amendments.
okay,
Were you in opposition to some of the other amendments?
nope, just curious.
Oh, everybody seemed fairly unanimous on the other amendments that we were making. That one was the one that,
No problem. Thank you.
okay. Everybody, okay? Any further comments, questions before I start calling the question? No? Okay. Call the question on the amendment to amend the policy to remove the last sentence of section 6.3I, Roman numeral 3 from the policy, which states any resulting recommendations, if approved by council, would be effective as of the beginning of the subsequent council term. All in favor to remove that sentence. Under remuneration review. The last sentence of. All in favor. 5 opposed.
Opposed.
Okay, that motion is carried 5 to 4. On the adoption of the motion to forward policy 2009, elected officials remuneration and expenses to the upcoming regular county council meeting for approval. As amended. Call the question. All in favor. And opposed? Motion's carried 5 and 4. And on the adoption of the motion to recommend to county council that the amended policy 2009 elected officials remuneration and expenses policy take effect on October 1st, 2024. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
That's right, opposed.
6 and 3. Okay,
I'd make a motion for the closed session.
Reeve Hall has made a motion to enter closed session at 1:49. Call the question. All in favor? Motion carried 9 and 0. Councillor Mins made a motion to come out of closed session at 2:55 PM. That motion carried 8 to 0. Coming out of closed, Reeve Hall is looking to make a motion to accept the updates as information. We'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 8 and 0. And our meeting is adjourned at 2:56. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.